Oh, hello there. No, this is a little tribute to Jamie Russell. Yeah, welcome to the tablets. There's 39 and a half years in between the tablets. Let's see what we can do here tonight. All right, we got Leviticus 1. And the Lord called to Moses out of the tabernacle of the congregation. So the tabernacle is already built. We know it was built Aviv 1. It was built, it took a year and was finally put up Aviv 1, the anniversary. Oh, actually, close to the anniversary. It might actually have been, we'll have to look at that. 2 years? Yeah, in the second year, on the first day of the first month, they reared the tabernacle up. They brought a bunch of wagons, 12 wagons. The 12 tribes brought a bunch of gifts, 12 silver platters, like 4 wagons and 8 oxen or something, because they only carried part of the tabernacle with animals and carts. The rest was carried by hand by the priests. Korah's rebellion. Korah, his team was to carry the gold. If you read how to tear down the tabernacle, you put a bunch of cloth around the menorah, badger skins, and then you put it on a pole. Yeah, you carry it by hand. We all know that when David moved the ark, it tipped and the guy touched it and died because the priests were supposed to be carrying it by hand, not on a cart. It's a very boy, you're in between. You're in the royal court. You're not the king or the queen or the prince, but you're above the jester, the court jester. You're carrying golden holy items. 8,200 men, I think it was, 8,500 men, over 8,000 men it took to do everything. So yeah, they rebelled a couple years in and got tired of carrying all that stuff, moving around. If you've ever read Numbers, I think it's in Numbers, all the different times they travel around every time the fire moves or the cloud moves. There's like 40 different stops. Oh my goodness. No, I'm not saying I'd rebel too. I'm just saying you're in a furnace, you're in a desert, and you're carrying this stuff. But anyway, he also gave, each tribe gave a silver platter of 150, what was it, shekels or pounds? It couldn't have been 150 pounds. But that's reminiscent of what you are to bring once the wilderness tabernacle was set up and cleansed, dedicated. Oh, and even fire came out from God. The whole congregation was there. They were told to watch it for 7 days. They put down the offerings in the altar, and fire came down and consumed it. Actually, there's 3 different offerings on that, and he consumed 2. He left it couldn't have been the sin offering. It couldn't have been the peace offering either. By golly, what the heck was it? But anyway, we read about that later with Moses. He's looking for the goat of the sin offering. Oh my gosh, it's burnt. You were supposed to eat it. Somebody killed it. Somebody put the blood. But once they put it on altar of burnt offerings, they didn't take it off in time to eat it. It burnt. And Moses sought the goat of the sin offering desperately, went to, well, Aaron and the sons that were left, and I think his uncle's sons, and said, hey, what happened? And I don't know, he talked to Aaron, but Aaron says, you know, it was taken care of, but no, I'm not going to eat of it today. And it's not because his sons had died and he was in mourning. Let's be clear on that. They died and he mourned for like a millisecond before Moses says, whoa, this is what God was talking about. I shall be sanctified this day, and I will be glorified in my sanctification, or something like that. And these guys doing strange fire. And this strange fire ain't marijuana. It ain't tobacco. Oh, for goodness gracious. They took coals from the brass altar and brought it before the veil and put incense on it. No, that's your strange fire. It's from the brass altar outside. This is a golden altar. Got a little separate fire thing going, got a little separate incense thing going on there. The one outside's got blood and guts on it and dedication fat drizzling on it. Oh, let's grab some coals from there and go stick it in the altar of incense. Yeah, that'll work out good. Hey, Lord, here's some prayers of some dead bulls. Yeah, that's strange fire. Strange. Not marijuana or cigarettes or even a wrong concoction. It's not that hard to make that concoction. It's like 3 parts this, 5 parts this. Well, it's like 3/8 part this, 5/8 part that. It's not some, half a hen down to an ephah, whatever. It's not. So they didn't make it. Well, they very well could have made it wrong, because the next thing they talk about is God spoke to Aaron. Okay, God's always talking to Moses. God's always talking to Moses and Aaron. And I think one time God is talking to Aaron and Moses, where he actually puts Aaron's name first. But I'm not 100% on that. I never did reproof that. I just heard that. Regardless, we're looking at 39 and a half years between the tablets. Where do I get that number? Well, the first set were right away. We know Exodus 20 comes down with the Moses. God yells down the 10 commandments. It's too loud for the people, so they send Moses up there. He hears the judgments and the statutes. That's not the Levitical priesthood system. That's not the sacrificial system. That's not even how to build the tabernacle. And that's not even, hey, here, take these 2 tablets in stone. He's down talking to the people, and the people send him up there to hear the rest. And God tells him the rest. And it is nothing, no Levitical priesthood system, no sacrificial system, no tabernacle building, how to build it, badger skins. The Passover has happened already in Exodus. That's been commanded to do forever. You do not need a temple for that. You do not need a tabernacle for that. They did it in Egypt, sacrificing a lamb god of the Egyptians, walking it around, strutting it around for 4 days in their face, taking good care of it. And we're going to slaughter it and put its blood on our door, and we're going to live. And then we're going to leave. Y'all are going to die and give us all your gold because you didn't pay attention. So anyway, yeah, the Exodus 20, the 10 commandments, a little bit too loud, God yelling them down. The people send Moses up there. Moses gets judgments and statutes, judgments such as the 3 feasts. And we don't even know how to do them yet. Well, the first one we do, I just told you, Passover is one of those 3 feasts commanded forever, and that's in the judgments of Exodus 20 to 24:8. the actual blood covenant we're trying to get into. So he comes down and takes some bull blood, which was never commanded by God. Show me in the text where God said, okay, write this down and put bull blood on it, the people, and the altar. You won't find it. So Moses comes down, reads it in front of all the people, writes it down, and then he goes to read it in front of 1 million people, like, yeah, Monty Python style, you know, the guy in the back, speak up, and sprinkles blood on them. Now, Paul says he took his water and blood. I don't know if that's in the Old Testament account. It has to be. Regardless, he took hyssop and the blood of bulls that people, of some boys that were given burnt offerings or peace offerings or something. These are the same. There's no temple yet. There's no tabernacle yet. These guys are killing a bull like people have been doing for 1,000 years. Abe built altars for peace offerings and whole burnt offerings. He was Abraham. Abraham was told, oh, I think it was Abraham, was told to sacrifice your son Isaac. Yeah, we all know that story, as a whole burnt offering. Yes, if he had gone through with the knife that we all see pictures of him holding, and he's going to douse it into his son somehow. No, he's going to slit his throat. That's how you do it. He's not going to plunge it into his heart. He's going to slit his throat, as commanded to do to a bull or a goat. So there's no adrenaline. But then, yes, take the body and burn it completely. What a weird command, unless it was for the salvation of the world because of Adam's fall. Regardless, Passover was the only feast. And then he says you're going to do, he doesn't even call them Shavuot or Pentecost or Tabernacles or Sukkot, booths. He calls the three feasts, we don't even know how to do the three feasts, and he's commanding us that's to write it down, sprinkle blood on 1 million people with water. You're going to have to, you're going to run out, and it's going to coagulate. It's going to be like an empty paint pail after an hour. 1 million people, sprinkle the blood on water on them with hyssop, blood and water on the covenant that he just wrote down, the blood covenant, which is the 10 commandments, 3 feasts, and judgments. Don't suffer a witch to live, a Hebrew slave release after 6 years and give him a bunch of money, no bestiality, stuff like that. But the 3 feasts are in there, and they're called the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Notice it's not Passover. As soon as I said the Feast of Unleavened Bread, you said, oh, yeah, Passover. No. The Feast of Unleavened Bread, a 12-day feast that's become to be known as capital P Passover in the English. Small p Passover in the English means sacrifice. It's just a direct translation from the Hebrew Paschal, meaning sacrifice, in particular, the sacrifice, the Passover sacrifice. That is 1 day. That's 1 day you sacrifice it. But it's taking you 4 days to keep it up in your house. You take it out of the herd on the 10th, keep it up in your house, and on the 14th, you kill it and cook it. On the 15th, you eat and burn it. You eat quickly, burn the rest. You eat and burn it on the 15th, leaving none till the morning. That is also an added Sabbath, whether it's a weekly Sabbath or not. And then 7 days from then, another added Sabbath completes the feast, whether it's a weekly Sabbath or not. He calls Shavuot and Pentecost, Shavuot meaning weeks, Jamie, I'm playing your music in the back. That's hilarious. Daniel, yes, that's weeks. It's called the Feast of Weeks. Paul, on the first of weeks, Mary, even in the accounts of the women come to the tomb, in the Greek it's weeks. It still means that first day of the week, Sunday, that Sunday, but in the Hebrew, in the Greek, they had to have been getting it from the Hebrew. It literally means weeks, plural. It's the first of weeks. It's the first day of the counting of the Omer. There's been 0 Sabbaths, but in 6 days, there's going to be a Sabbath. And you're to count the Sabbaths. They call it weeks. He calls it your first fruits. You shall celebrate the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and then Shavuot and Pentecost he calls your first fruits of the corn, your feast of the first fruits of the corn. This is not we won't even confuse you. This is 50 days after the weekly Sabbath that falls within the 7-day part of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, where you find no leaven in your house. And then for booths and tabernacles and Sukkot, he says, and then you shall have a feast of ingathering at the end of the year in the fall. And then these all come to be known as, instead of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, it came to be known as capital P Passover. Instead of Shavuot, instead of the first fruits of the corn, it came to be known as Shavuot Pentecost. And quite honestly, that's when we know he was at Mount Sinai shouting in Exodus 20, shouting down the 10 Commandments. We know that he says it in the text, on the 46th day, we're doing this. And Moses went up and God said, hey, be ready against the 3rd day. That's 49 days out. He was told, set bounds around the mountain, and he didn't. Moses called him back up and said, go set bounds around the mountain. He says, I did. I don't need to. I already told the people. The people know. And God says, no, get thee down. And then Exodus 20 starts. And God said, I am the Lord thy God that brought you out of the land of Egypt. You have no gods before me. Don't make any gods of silver to them. Don't make any gods of gold to me. No image. So don't be scared of getting in this blood covenant that has the 10 Commandments and 3 Sabbath, three feasts. Think party. When I say feast, think party. When I say feast, think party. All right, so anyway, he shouts down the 10, he goes up. So Moses takes back the bloodied contract. The bloody people are down below. The bloody altar is down below. He's taken the bloody contract up the mountain with 70 elders, Nadab, Abihu, and Ben-Hur, somebody, I don't know. And for a week, Moses is up there with them and God. They saw God. They did not see a similitude. They saw God, ate for a week, a 7-week marriage festival with God Almighty. Sound familiar, all you eschatologists? Revelation and such? No, it doesn't work like that, right? Yeah, so he's up there for a week. Okay, so he's up there for a week, and then 33 additional days, because it just says he's up there for an additional a total of 40. In that 40 days, he's already delivered the marriage contract in blood. We're good to go. That's the blood contract we want to get into that Jesus spoke of at the Last Supper. But check out what comes additionally as Moses goes into the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. He gets all the instructions on how to build the tabernacle and how to do a yearly day of atonement and how to anoint the priests and the tabernacle and all the furniture thereof. For a dwelling place for him, and so he will walk amongst us. So even though this is part of the original plan, it doesn't sound that bad to me. A place for him to live, and walk amongst us? Yeah, we all know Jesus. We all know Jesus. So that's just a little bit different now. This temple, his flesh, destroy it in 3 days, bring it back up again. So that flesh, yeah, no more stony temples, no more stony tablets. Bring the tablets of your heart. Oh, so back to 39 and a half years. So the first tablets in Exodus 20, they're given, and too loud, Moses goes up there, gets more instructions, brings it down, puts it in blood on the people altar and paper, take it up there for a week marriage festival, 33 additional days. As he's coming down the mountain after 40 days, God says, Moses, here's the 10 commandments. He carved them out of the heaven's floor, essentially, wrote in his own, on the front and back, or maybe he wrote it like through and through, like it went all the way through the stone, but it said it was written on both sides. So however that works out. Comes down, he says, and before he goes down there, he tells them, go get thee down, thy people have already rebelled and built a calf and made sacrifices to it, and said they're making a feast to me tomorrow. They've replaced you with that calf to worship me. You've got the covenant. There's no feast tomorrow. You've got the covenant. And he says, stand back, Moses, while I wipe them out and blot their name out from under heaven and start over with you. And Moses says, no. The Egyptians will speak and say you weren't able to do it. And he relents. But Moses does go down the mountain, sees the people naked and the calf, broke the commandments. Excuse me, the testimony. As we find out in searching out a chronology, we'll see the testimony. It's first called, before the golden calf, it's called the testimony, the testimony. Even when they're building it, the testimony, the ark of the testimony. And then once they take off, it's called the ark of the covenant. But he broke that testimony. And he took the calf, burnt it to dust, threw it in the water, and made the people drink it. And if you don't think that's possible, it's just you take an ounce of gold and you're gonna like put it on cake. You could pound it down so you have a restaurant. You've got gold, an ounce of gold, and you're gonna pound it down thin enough that it's paper thin, and you got to touch it with tweezers. You can't even touch it with your skin; it'll stick to your skin. It's that thin. That'll last you a month. I think there's an ounce of gold on that new telescope. They pounded it down so thin. They didn't need it to be any thicker. The properties of gold remain gold no matter how small you get it. That it's indestructible. That's what's so valuable about it. You can form it into anything and then melt it down and reform it in anything. You're just purifying it more and more. You can't bubble it out of existence. Well, I don't know if you can do that with anything, but you know what I mean about gold. So Moses comes out, throws it on, and he says, let me go back up to see if I can make an atonement. He says, I fell down at the first for 40 days and 40 nights. But it also says he took the calf and burnt it up. So did that happen in a millisecond? He could have just given an order, and that the text would still ring true. Who's on my side? Who's on God's side? And all the Levites stepped forward. They killed 3,000 people that day that were naked. That just takes a minute. I'm not saying years, but it says he fell down as before and fasted, no food or water. Oh, maybe it says bread. 40 days and 40 nights as at the first. Saying to the people, let me go up there, peradventure I can make an atonement for you. And he goes up and talks to God, and he says, oh, these people have done a terrible sin. And now, he knows it's their death penalty. He just told him, no, don't do it. The Egyptians will say you weren't able to. Now he's seen exactly how bad it is, and he's like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do about this? Blot my name out from under heaven, I pray thee. And God repented, but he also said, go lead the people into the land that I promised. So this is where he actually does that. This is the end of Deuteronomy 33. He says, go, lead the people. Chapter 34 starts out, the next chapter starts out. Oh, did I say that backwards? The end of 34, chapter 35 starts out, Moses, depart, take the people into the promised land. In between those two sentences, why is he duplicating it? Well, at one point he says, lead them, and then another time he says, depart. In between those two sentences is 38 years. Because we know he says, the end of Deuteronomy 34, go lead the people. He does. But he goes to Taberah, Kibroth Hattaavah, Kadesh Barnea, and they have a bad witness report. And it says they got into Kadesh Barnea during the wine season. That's the fall. This is right after their first Passover, which in Numbers says it was on the first month during the second year. The first month, he said, do Passover. Well, I think he actually meant the sacrifice. In fact, he would have had to have meant literally just do the sacrifice. Don't do all the ceremonial accoutrements. But he very well could have. He very well, it was set up just on the first. Moses, when Aaron and Nadab and Abihu were in there the first day, and then those guys, the Nadab and Abihu, were gone. But for 6 additional days, total of 7, Moses and Aaron were in the tabernacle at the beginning of the second year. And now they're in Kadesh Barnea, and it says the grapes, the time of the grapes. Excuse me, standing by the dusty window. The time of the grapes in the fall, Kadesh Barnea, bad witness report, and God says the same thing. Stand back, Moses, let them wipe them out as one person, start over, blot their name off from under heaven, start over with you, and make you a mightier nation than they. And Moses pleaded again, but then it says he fell down at the first. And that would have been after Korah's rebellion and after they came down south again. And we read that in a different book. And then they finally get to the wilderness of Sinai, and he pitches the tent afar off. And quite frankly, they could have gone the entire Sinai Peninsula, but it's 38 years later that Moses says, rise up and get ye across the brook Zered. That's the land of the giants. That's the beginning of the land of the giants. They've gone around the Moabites, the Edomites, the Mount Seir. They've encompassed Mount Seir many days. Yes, many days. If they could have even 38 years, because then he says from the Kadesh Barnea to Brook Zered was 38 years. So Kadesh Barnea, a year and a half after coming out, 38 years later, Moses saying, they rise up, get over the brook Zered in Deuteronomy, aligns with where did he say that? Anyway, we get a total of 39 and a half years. Yeah, let's work on that and see if ouch. Let's work on that and see if we can get it figured out together. You know, you got some comments, complaints, criticisms. This is my riot buster. That's how I bust up riots. You got some comments, criticisms, put them in the comments. Oh my goodness, we got to get this straightened out, this whole wilderness chronology, so we know what rules to follow, right? You want to sacrifice a cow? No, we don't do sacrifices anymore. How come? Because your church said so and chopped it up into 3 different categories of moral, ceremonial, civil, when the Bible chops it up already, as I'm trying to show. Amen and hallelujah. Give a thumbs up to.